Hello, and welcome to episode 171 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On today's show, my good friend Maz will be back to finish our conversation from April 25th in episode 169. We're going to be talking about how to pick a place to stay on a Walt Disney World vacation. In that past talk, we covered staying off-property and staying at a Walt Disney World value resort. Today, we're going to move on to the WDW moderate and deluxe resorts. Before we get started, I wanted to give a shout out to my old boss, Phil Gramlich at Ear to There Travel. Not only is Phil the owner of the travel agency where I worked when I started this podcast, but he is also the author of a new book, Walt and His Park, The Stories You Probably Haven't Heard. These are 80 different short stories about Walt Disney. Phil taps into his wealth of conversations with Disney legends like Bob Gurr, Raleigh Crump, and the great Julie Andrews. I now have these stories in book form, but I heard so many of them over the years while walking through the parks with Phil or being on an agent Zoom call. If you're listening to this podcast, that means you probably love Disney, and you will love this book. My personal favorite story in its pages is The New Suit. Walt needed some help from a new suit and an old car to finally get the courage to ask Lillian to marry him. We know how that story ends, and we know how much Walt adored his wife. Looking back to those early days in Los Angeles when Walt wasn't already a huge success, it really puts his life in a different perspective. You can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other sites where you purchase books and grab Walt and His Park, The Stories You Probably Haven't Heard. Phil Gramlich will also be my guest on the show in a few weeks. He'll talk about his book, his love of Disneyland, and his time as a cast member. There are 3 big reasons that I really wanted to promote Phil's project. Most importantly, it's a darn good book. It was written to be accessible, and the anecdotal style makes it like reading a podcast. Secondly, Phil is probably responsible for this podcast. When I was selling trips for his company, he kept trying to get me to start a podcast. He knew I had almost 20 years in radio experience at the time, and that I had the knowledge to talk Disney for hours. I don't say it enough, but I adore having this podcast. It has been amazing to put all of this creative energy into something that is just mine. I control the creative direction. I find people who have unique experiences and perspectives, and I don't have to push any of them past gatekeepers. I get to do my show with the people I want to talk to on the podcast. Finally, I owe Phil for something even more important than just a podcast. When the pandemic hit, Phil wanted to make sure that all of his agents kept up with their social media profiles. He came up with a contest with the prize being a Bob Gurr autographed replica of the Matterhorn. I was so determined to win this contest that I really started to post more and more on social media. Despite my autism making it hard to comfortably interact with new people, I was able to push through some of the discomfort to add comments when somebody commented on one of my posts. These interactions slowly turned into some of my closest friendships. I can't remember when I started following Maz, Sarah Says, or Jillian on Twitter, but I know that this content forced me to keep posting regularly. The posting led to conversations and eventually friendships. For helping me find both of my podcast co-hosts and many of my absolute best friends, I owe Phil a lot for that contest. Oh, and in case I forgot to mention, I won the contest, and my Bob Gurr Matterhorn is one of my most prized possessions. It takes a lot of guts to reach out for your dream, and as long as your dream doesn't hurt other people, I will always do what I can to support people who take that chance. It isn't easy. Congratulations, Phil. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. After a very busy few months in February and March, with few videos in between the podcast episodes, April had a lot more content. I tell you what, February we had to move. March, we lost our cat Lily, 16 and a half year old cat Lily. We loved her so much, and she passed away in March. So we had so much happening. But in April, I returned to Epcot for the International Flower and Garden Festival, celebrated the 26th anniversary of Disney's Animal Kingdom, and looked at all of the potential changes coming to Magic Kingdom in vlogs. I have also been expanding my content to not just include theme parks, whether it's promoting charities, going to baseball games, or just getting out in the Florida sun. I'm trying to share a lot more with all of you. I have some fun things planned for the next couple weeks. All of that should be a good enough reason to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You will help us keep growing with just one click. Let's get things started with today's show. Thanks for joining us, Maz.
Thanks for having me.
I know you've been enjoying lately Coronado Springs, and this is a moderate resort that can almost get into the deluxe territory when you start talking about Grand Destino Tower. But this is a resort that has amazing food. There's Toledo, there's Three Bridges, there's a sports bar there, Rick's Sports Bar. If you, not me, Rick's, RIX. If you are just trying to figure out where you're going to watch the game, I think Disney needs to create some more places like Rick's, honestly, because now that ESPN Zone at the Boardwalk Resort isn't there anymore, there's no place to like watch the game. But Coronado Springs is a really, really popular place. I'll go there just to hang out for the day because there's a lot of parking. You don't get hassled like you get hassled at some of the other resorts for parking because it is created to be a convention resort. The pools are top notch. The tower is gorgeous and has lounges in it and has a coffee bar. And there's artwork from Dolly, and there are a lot of tributes to Walt Disney. But the one drawback to it is huge. So you might be 2 or 3 miles away from somebody else if you don't coordinate where you're going to be located in the resort.
Yeah, this has definitely become one of my go-to moderates, especially for a race weekend. It's very quiet, but like you said, the food, everything, it's so great. I've been fortunate enough to be in a room that is very close to the main bus stop, and I've also been in rooms all the way in the back corner of the resort, at like the last bus stop. And honestly, it seems like it's larger than it is. The addition of the bridges across the lagoon in the middle of the resort has made such a huge difference because now you don't have to walk all the way around. If you want to get somewhere, you can take a bridge and kind of cut your travel time in thirds. So it is one of those resorts that I think gets overlooked a lot because people see it as just a convention resort. And they think like, oh, well, what, it's a business resort. I'm not going to stay there. But it has top-notch theming that, again, you might not expect for something that is kind of pushed as a business resort. And now that they have that Grand Destino Tower, it really does feel like you're getting deluxe amenities at a better price.
And I know sometimes families steer clear of this resort because of it having that convention reputation. But honestly, with the pools that they have there, your kid is going to lose their mind over these pools. They're amazing. The one with the Mexican pyramid is awe-inspiring. Just like really great Disney theming that you're getting at a resort that is a moderate, so it's not even supposed to be themed as well as some of the deluxe resorts, but it does get that theming.
And I really do think it has the best food in all the moderate resorts because, again, it's a convention hotel. So they have people coming in who really don't know anything about Disney or don't do anything with Disney just to come stay at that resort for business conferences. So they really have to show their A game with food to keep all these people happy. And it is top notch food. The burger at Three Bridges is one of my favorites on all of Disney World property. And like, I love my burgers. This is high praise. It is fantastic food.
Yeah, I actually haven't had the chance to get to Three Bridges yet. It is on my list and one that I know we definitely want to hit at some point soon. I find myself when I'm there either going for I got the reservation at Toledo and I want to do a fancier meal, or I end up going to Rick's a lot. I really like Rick's. That also has a great, at least I have to get the veggie burger. It has a great veggie burger there. It is a nice atmosphere. You can sit there, you can talk, have conversations where it's a little more laid back than some of the other restaurants. But Three Bridges, I have heard, especially from you, is one that I want to hit sometime really soon.
We should go.
All right. Have you ever stayed at Caribbean Beach?
That I haven't.
So I actually have stayed at Caribbean Beach. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of this when it comes to a moderate. And a nice thing about this resort is that, like Pop Century and Art of Animation, it is on the Disney Skyliner. Actually, the Skyliner hub is at Caribbean Beach. So you can get to one Skyliner that takes you right to Hollywood Studios, or you can get on at another station and it takes you right to Epcot. So you don't necessarily have to wait around to go to multiple stations like you do at some of these other resorts. Once again, just like Caribbean Beach, great pools. Your kids are going to love the pools. There is some good food at this resort, not as good as at Coronado Springs, but Sebastian's is an amazing. It's not all you care to enjoy. A lot of people do confuse that and get disappointed. You get like one refill of your plate if you go to Sebastian's, but they have some amazing food there. The food court itself is pretty good. It's pretty passable. They have a lot of different unique items. Usually they have some seasonal stuff that changes. But the place that I really like at Caribbean Beach that is underappreciated is Spyglass Grill. And this is at a completely different part than the main part of Caribbean Beach. There's a section of buildings that's on the other side of the pond from the main Skyliner hub. And that is where Spyglass Grill is located. I got veggie tacos. These were plant-based tacos and a Korean barbecue veggie burger. I wanted to try both of the vegan options there. I was full by the end of the tacos. And I'm a big dude. So they were, I think, $9.99. They may have gone up now, but this was a very reasonably priced quick service meal. Came with fries and 3 tacos. And then I got the burger that also came with fries. I was stuffed. So just imagine if you're going with your family and your kids, maybe you get, the 3 veggie tacos and that feeds 2 of your kids for $9.99. It is a really, really good option. And I think it's kind of under the radar that people don't know it's there. They were showing Disney movies on the big screen TV. It was outside, so you got like the breeze going by. You got to watch the Skyliners. Very cool atmosphere at Spyglass Grill. Have you stayed at any of the other moderates?
Stayed at both of the Port Orleans resorts.
Okay, what are your thoughts on them?
I really like both of those. I really love French Quarter. I think it felt really quaint in a way that I really enjoyed. And also they have beignets. So, there's a point in their favor right there. I've stayed both of those once again for run weekends. And they were both great for that. And I know that, for both of those, as with most of the moderates, they have only bus transportation to the parks. And I know that, sometimes that can be kind of up and down, but I found it always to be very reliable. There were buses around time, they were frequent, all of that. But what's really nice about the Port Orleans resorts is that they have a boat to Disney Springs. So if you're planning to spend, a day at Disney Springs, if you have a day where you're not going to the park and you want to check out Disney Springs, that's a great place to stay because you get to take, a nice little boat ride over to the springs.
And I think with the boat that takes you from Disney Springs to the Port Orleans resorts, it is almost like a ride in and of itself. So even though you're not entering a park on that day, maybe it still gives, maybe it's your family, but even if it's not kids, like it gives adults a chance to sit back, get the breeze as you're, riding down the river. It's a nice long boat ride to get you from Port Orleans to Disney Springs. So you're on there for a good, I don't know, I'd say about 20 minutes, right?
Probably, because it stops at both Port Orleans and then Saratoga too.
Or is it Old Key West? I think it stops at Old Key West, and then Saratoga Springs is you just turn left if you get off at the Disney Springs.
Okay.
Either way, we might be wrong there, but it is great access to Disney Springs. I know a lot of people who do go on vacations, you want to have that rest day. You want to have that day where you go to Disney Springs. And if this is even more relaxing, you're not getting on a crowded bus to get to Disney Springs. You get on a nice, relaxing boat ride, and then you walk around for a little bit. Maybe you make it an early night back to the hotel so that you can rope drop the next morning. That is a great amenity because really one of the things about the moderates is most of them are moderates because of the transportation, because it's not quite as easy to get to the theme parks as it is at the deluxe resorts. So now we are going to move on to the deluxe resorts, and I think we're going to talk about both of our favorite resort. This is our favorite resort on property. We've both stayed there, and I think have both spent a lot of time there even when we're not staying there. We sort of cheat the system and do those resort violations. But Disney's Wilderness Lodge is the best Disney has to offer in every aspect. It is incredible theming. It is incredible food. It is basically one of the three best in every category. Quick service, sit-down meals, fancy meals, lounges. One of the three best of all of those things is at Wilderness Lodge. So why don't you talk about what you love so much about this resort? Because I'm going to have to chime in after you.
Yeah, chime in whenever you want. Let's start with the theming. The Pacific Northwest theme to Wilderness Lodge is just so special. There is something so incredibly unique about being able to walk into Wilderness Lodge and you feel like you're walking into this gigantic log cabin, but it is also simultaneously the nicest log cabin you have ever seen. Like, it is beautiful. It has this incredibly high ceiling in the lobby, this huge fireplace in the corner. It is just such a simultaneously cozy and welcoming, but also elegant hotel. And I think it's really hard to combine both of those things and do it well. And Disney absolutely knocked it out of the park. There's a lobby with lots of sitting areas. There's a little creek running through the lobby with a bridge that you can walk over. I mean, it has a water feature that runs outside, which is incredible. And then it has these little sitting nooks on the different floors where there are little fireplaces and there are couches and chairs, and you can go just kind of relax and enjoy the atmosphere.
And then over at the DVC section, they have the Carolwood Pacific Room, which I adore. It is completely dedicated to Walt's love for trains. and there's a big fireplace there. When it's the holiday season, they decorate it with really classy, really understated holiday decorations. But even when it's not the holidays, you have paintings of trains and you have train sets. One where Walt actually sat in the train, and there's a picture of him sitting in that exact train. That is really cool. But then when you get back over to the dining, and I'm just going to list off these restaurants right now. Roaring Fork is a quick service location which offers a lot of the fairly standard fare, but they have a really good vegetarian option. Their veggie burger is great. They have a setup where you can keep getting your coffee over and over again. They have tons of seasonings and sauces and dressings and peanut butter and jelly, and like they're ready to make sure that not only do you get good food at the quick service, but if you don't want to just put butter on your bagel in the morning, you want to have some peanut butter on it or some jam or whatever, like they have all of that there for you. You can actually just sit here and relax in this quick service location. And most quick service locations in resorts are not as laid back as this one. So that is a huge benefit. Then you move up to Geyser Point, which is the bar and a nicer restaurant, but not like the fanciest restaurant. When you're out here and Happily Ever After is showing over at Magic Kingdom, they pump in the music for Happily Ever After, and you can watch the fireworks from Geyser Point. You can get an alcoholic beverage if you want. You can get mocktails, or you can just, get a soda and get a burger like Maz was talking about earlier and watch Happily Ever After. Watch the water show that they have been doing since 1971 and have it come past you. This place is one of the most exciting places on property because this is like the local bar, but at a Disney resort. But then you go in and you get one of the best indoor lounges with Territory Lounge that has a vegan mac and cheese that is one of the best things you're going to eat on property. Not just one of the best vegan things. It has peppers and onion straws and just immaculate. They have a charcuterie board that everybody seems to really love. Territory Lounge is a great place, and a lot of people wait there while they're waiting for their reservation at Artist Point. Artist Point is the fancy, more signature dining location, but you also get a meet and greet with Snow White, Grumpy, Dopey, and the Evil Queen. And then there's the all you care to enjoy skillets over at Whispering Canyon. They have absolutely everything you could want in this one resort.
Yeah, I mean, it really is everything. And I've now eaten at almost all the restaurants there, and I have never been disappointed by anything I've ordered. It is all prepared so well. It's also themed so well. At Whispering Canyon, if you go there, make sure you ask for some ketchup. They'll definitely bring that out to your table.
You know what? I am going to say that if you want the serving staff to play around with you and mess around with you, ask for ketchup. If you don't like that kind of stuff, don't ask for ketchup. And on that note, they do tease you and have those kind of interactions at Whispering Canyon. If you don't want them to do that, just tell them and they'll be very respectful of that. But that is a good point, and I just wanted to interrupt. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out, and you should have interrupted me. I will say I've done both. I've had the, full experience where they've, teased us, and I've asked for, a refill of something, and they brought me, a little tiny baby cup with just like a sip of water in it. But then I've also had a trip where it was after a run and we were exhausted and we just wanted to eat our food in silence. And you know what? they let us eat our food in silence. And they came by to say, here's your skillet. Do you need anything else? Would you like a refill? Here's your check. And it was also a wonderful experience with great food.
So I kind of want to wrap up this conversation by asking, beyond just whether it's Wilderness Lodge or the theming at Contemporary, the Polynesian, Grand Floridian, these are amazing resorts. All of them have fantastic theming, fantastic amenities. What is it that makes you decide, okay, on this trip, Animal Kingdom Lodge we haven't even mentioned yet, and we could talk about the resorts for a long, long time. But what makes you decide this is a trip where I want to splurge, I want to spend that extra money and do a deluxe? Because you obviously don't do it every time. Sometimes you're like, Pop Century's fine for this trip. Does it depend on the type of vacation you're having? Does it depend on how much time you're expecting to stay at the resorts?
Yeah, it depends on a lot of things. One of the things that I like so much about Disney vacations is that they are so customizable, depending on exactly what kind of experience you want to have. And I think the hotels are a great way to kind of start that customization process. So, like for me, if I'm traveling solo, there's less of a chance that I'm going to stay in a deluxe resort because they are more expensive. If I'm working, maybe I will spend a little more money to stay at a nicer resort because then, I will be spending more time there. I'll be getting my meals there during the day. So I want to have good food options. I want to have reliable internet. I want to have a little bit more of a quiet area to work. But, then there's also the trips that are special trips or milestone trips that you take with your family, that you don't know if you're going to go back with them in the next 10 years. So you want to make it a more special trip. And so then you splurge on the hotel a little bit. Or if it's, a big celebration trip and you've been saving up for a few years and you want to, really go all out and celebrate something big that happened in your life, then I think that's another great almost justification to say this is worth spending the extra money to really get something a little more special and to continue that sort of top tier level of Disney experience even throughout, falling asleep at night.
So I know that when I think about the times that I stayed in deluxe resorts, it was mostly when the parks had just reopened and we were still at the height of the pandemic, and even Epcot was closing at like 9 o'clock as the latest park to close, or maybe it was 10 o'clock. I don't remember, but most of the parks were closing earlier. They were only open for like 8 to 10 hours a day. And when you're enjoying the theme parks like that, and you're not going to be spending rope drop to goodnight kiss in the park, then it does make sense to go to one of these resorts where you're going to spoil yourself a little more. Maybe you are getting ready for a Run Disney and you want to have the great running trails on some of these resorts, and then you just want to sit after you're done running at a huge pool and just relax and have a drink next to the pool and not even worry about the theme parks. Because we haven't even talked about Boardwalk and Yacht and Beach Club that are right next to Epcot. There are a lot of reasons to stay at some of these resorts, and I understand you can look at that sticker shock and say, whoa, this isn't worth it. And maybe it's not for you depending on how you vacation, but consider it. Every once in a while, if maybe you're going for the first time in a number of years and you want to make it special, just look into it. You might be surprised. Maz, thank you so much for being back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been episode 171 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Next week, I'm trying something really different. At the D23 Expo in 2019, a refurbishment was announced for Spaceship Earth in Epcot. That refurbishment has been pushed back indefinitely, but it's very possible that we will hear an update at this year's D23 Expo in Anaheim, California in August. I'm going to have a little fun telling you what I would do if I was put in charge of updating the centerpiece attraction to my favorite Walt Disney World park. I add scenes, update the narration, and so much more. That will be next Thursday on Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Until then, have a great week.